Okay, so you know those corporate retreats. The ones that are supposed to be about team building, but are really just a 48-hour job interview with an open bar. We were at one of those last month, at some fancy lakeside resort that smelled of pine needles and desperation. The reason for the extra layer of tension was Kaylin Vance, our new CEO. She'd been with the company for exactly 6 weeks and had the predatory stillness of a shark who finds the corporate aquarium a little too small. All weekend, I'd watched people try to impress her. They'd laugh a little too loudly at her dry jokes or ask some insightful question about market synergy. It was pathetic. I wanted to be different. The climax of this whole charade was the Saturday night dinner. After the dessert plates were cleared, our department head, a cheerful golden retriever of a man named Doug, decided it would be a fantastic idea for everyone to share their most memorable work experience. Most people gave boring, sanitized answers about closing a difficult deal or a time they learned about teamwork. I could see Kaylin's polite smile tightening at the edges. She was bored. And all I could think was, I need to be more than just Sky, the customer manager who's good with spreadsheets. Then the microphone came to our table, and a brilliant, stupid idea took root in my brain. My eyes landed on Javier. Javier isn't just a colleague, he's my friend. My only real friend at this place. He's the guy I vent to about my deadlines, the one who knows I keep a bottle of emergency tequila in my desk drawer. He's quiet, humble, and fiercely loyal. And a few months ago, over cheap beer after a brutal week, he'd told me about how tough things were at home. His mom was sick, really sick, and the medical bills were burying him. He'd been working a second job on weekends and a third one doing freelance data entry late at night. He once admitted he'd taken a 45-minute nap in the supply closet because he'd only slept 2 hours. So I stood up, feeling a surge of what I mistook for confidence. I want to talk about resilience, I began, my voice ringing out a little too loud. And for that, I want to tell you about Javier. I saw a flicker of confusion in his eyes. I gave him what I hoped was a reassuring smile and turned my attention to Kaylin. I painted a picture. I thought I was telling a hero's story, but the words came out wrong. I talked about his exhaustion, framed his desperation as grit, and described him sleeping among boxes of printer paper as a quirky, inspirational anecdote. The room was silent, hanging on my every word. I had their attention. I had Kaylin's attention. I was winning. This is a guy who works 3 jobs, barely sleeps, and still manages to show up for this team, I concluded, my voice swelling with fake emotion. So next time you see him looking a little tired, just remember he's our very own Rocky Balboa. Let's give a huge round of applause for our team's official hardship case, Javier. I beamed, expecting a wave of appreciative applause. Instead, there was only silence. A thick, suffocating silence that swallowed my stupid, triumphant smile whole. In that moment, the clinking of a fork against a plate a few tables away sounded like a gunshot. The silence wasn't just an absence of noise. It was a physical presence, a heavy blanket that smothered the air. I looked at Javier, my smile frozen on my face, and what I saw made my stomach clench. The color had completely drained from his face. He was staring down at the table, his hand wrapped so tightly around his water glass that his knuckles were white. His expression wasn't angry. It was something far worse. It was the hollowed-out look of someone who had just been betrayed in the most public way imaginable, a profound and naked humiliation. My eyes darted to Kaylin Vance, the CEO, the whole reason for this disastrous performance. Her lips were curved into a shape that was technically a smile, but it didn't come close to her eyes. Her eyes were cold, analytical. She gave a single, slow nod, a gesture that didn't convey approval but simply acknowledged that I had, in fact, finished speaking. Then she turned to Doug, our boss, and asked a quiet question about the next day's agenda. Just like that, I was dismissed. The spell of silence was broken. A nervous cough rippled through the room, and then conversations sputtered back to life, but they were strained and brittle. People were talking about anything and everything except what had just happened. Suddenly, everyone at my table found their empty plates incredibly interesting. Annika from accounting was meticulously inspecting her fork for smudges. Mark from logistics was scrolling through his phone with a furious intensity. No one would look at me. I felt a hot, prickling shame crawl up my neck. The rest of the dinner was agony. Javier didn't say another word. He just sat there, a statue carved from ice, until the event mercifully ended. I saw him heading for the exit, and a frantic panic seized me. I had to fix this. I had to make him understand. I caught up to him near the coat check. "Javi, hey," I said, my voice sounding desperate even to my own ears. "Listen about what I said in there. I was trying to show them how strong you are. It was a compliment, man. A poorly delivered one, maybe, but that's all it was." He stopped and turned to face me. The look in his eyes stopped my rambling excuses cold. It was a look of deep, quiet disappointment, a look that said he had expected better from me. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse me of anything. He just looked at me for a long moment, as if he was seeing me for the first time. Then he shook his head, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. "Don't," was all he said, his voice barely a whisper. And he walked away, leaving me standing there alone. My mind was a chaotic mess of justifications. It was just a joke. He's being way too sensitive. I was trying to help him. Why can't he see that? But beneath the loud, defensive shouting in my head, a cold, sinking feeling was taking hold. I had taken the most vulnerable part of his life, a story he had shared with me in trust, and I had sold it for a cheap chance to impress a stranger. And I still couldn't quite grasp why that felt so much worse than a simple mistake. It felt like a door had been slammed shut, and I didn't even know I was standing in the doorway. That Sunday was the longest day of my life. The final team-building activity was a nauseatingly cheerful hike, and the forced joviality felt like a personal insult. Javier wasn't there. He'd checked out of the resort at dawn, citing a family emergency. Everyone knew it was a lie, a polite fiction to escape the suffocating aftermath of my stupidity. His absence was a gaping hole in the group, and I felt its edges every time someone's gaze slid past me. I spent the entire day composing and deleting apology texts. Each one I wrote sounded either too groveling or too defensive. "I'm so sorry, Javi. I'm a complete idiot." Delete. "Look, I know you're upset, but you have to understand my intention was good." Delete. "Can we please just talk about this?" Delete. Nothing felt right. How do you apologize for something when you still don't fully understand the magnitude of what you've done? By Monday morning, I had worked myself into a state of jittery resolve. I was going to catch him at his desk, apologize properly, face to face, and make him see that I was still the same Sky, his friend. I'd buy him coffee, maybe his favorite ridiculously overpriced latte, and we'd laugh about how I was a social moron. We'd fix this, but Javier didn't give me the chance. At 2:15 p.m., an email landed in my inbox. The subject line was sterile and professional. "Project Phoenix Team Composition Adjustment Request." It was from Javier. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened it. The email was copied to Doug, our department head, and someone from HR I didn't even know. The body of the message was a masterpiece of corporate detachment. It was short, polite, and utterly devastating. Subject: Project Phoenix Team Composition Adjustment Request. To Sky Miller, Doug Henderson, CC, HR Services. Hi all. Following the strategic planning sessions over the weekend, I have been reevaluating my current project assignments to ensure optimal alignment with my professional strengths and departmental goals. To maintain the highest level of efficiency and avoid any potential communication friction on Project Phoenix, I am formally requesting to be reassigned to a different portfolio. I am confident this adjustment will be mutually beneficial and allow the team to continue its excellent progress without interruption. Thank you for your understanding. Best regards, Javier Ortiz. That was it. No mention of the dinner, no accusations, no emotion. He didn't say, "You humiliated me." He said, "To avoid any potential communication friction." He didn't say, "I can't stand to look at you." He said, "To ensure optimal alignment." He had taken our friendship, this raw, bleeding wound I had created, and translated it into the bland, lifeless language of a business memo. It was a programmatic cut, a clean, surgical severing of our professional ties. He wasn't fighting with me. He was deleting me. He was archiving our shared workspace into a folder he never had to open again. The sheer, cold formality of it was more chilling than any shouting match could ever have been. It was a declaration that I was no longer a person to him, just a potential communication friction that needed to be managed and removed. The silence at the dinner was painful, but this was a death sentence. Doug called me into his office the next morning. He didn't ask me to sit. He just leaned against his desk, holding a signed printout of Javier's email. His usual golden retriever enthusiasm was gone, replaced by a weary professionalism. "Javier's request has been approved, effective immediately," he said, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere over my shoulder. "He'll be moving over to the Atlas account. Annika will be taking his place on Phoenix. She'll need you to bring her up to speed." "Doug, it was a mistake," I blurted out. "A stupid, horrible joke. I'm going to fix it." For the first time, he met my gaze. There was no anger in his eyes, just a kind of tired disappointment that felt infinitely worse. "Sky," he said softly, "this isn't something you can fix. This is something you have to live with. Get Annika the files she needs, please." And that was it. The corporate machine had processed the error and rerouted the assets. I was the error. The days that followed were a masterclass in quiet excommunication. It wasn't overt. No one was rude to me. But the social fabric of the office had been rewoven, and I was on the outside of every seam. The lunch group I used to eat with would now forget to message me until they were already downstairs. Conversations would die down to a polite murmur when I approached the coffee machine. In meetings, my input was met with brief nods before the conversation quickly moved on, as if I had said nothing at all. I was a ghost at my own desk, a walking, breathing reminder of a social crime so unforgivable that it couldn't even be spoken about. I was surrounded by people, yet I had never felt so profoundly alone. The real blow, the one that finally shattered all my pathetic self-justifications, came about a week later. I was in the break room, getting a glass of water, when Annika, the woman now in Javier's old role, walked in with another colleague from a different department. They didn't see me standing by the far counter. "So, is it weird working with Sky now?" the other colleague asked in a low voice. Annika sighed, the sound heavy with exhaustion. "It's quiet," she said. "But honestly, I'm just glad Javi is doing better. I saw him yesterday, and he actually smiled. He looked lighter." "I still can't believe she did that," the colleague murmured. "In front of everyone, in front of Vance." "You know," Annika said, her voice dropping even lower, and I had to strain to hear her over the pounding in my own ears. "I had coffee with him on Tuesday. He told me the worst part wasn't the embarrassment. It wasn't even that it happened in front of the new CEO. She paused, and the silence stretched. I held my breath. He said, "The thing that kills me is that I told her all that because I trusted her. She was the only person in this whole company I thought I could be real with. And she took the heaviest thing I was carrying and turned it into a punchline to get a laugh." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. All the air rushed out of my lungs. In that single, overheard sentence, Annika had given voice to the truth I had been desperately trying to avoid. My flimsy excuses, "I was helping, it was a compliment, he's too sensitive," crumbled into dust. It wasn't about the joke. It was never about the joke. It was about the trust. I had taken his vulnerability, a gift he had given me in confidence, and I hadn't just dropped it. I had thrown it onto a stage and put a spotlight on it for my own selfish gain. The one safe harbor he thought he had in this place, and I was the one who mined it. I backed away from the counter silently, my water forgotten, and fled back to my desk. I stared at my computer screen, but all I could see was Javier's face in that moment of silence. Not the humiliation, but the shock of betrayal. The look of a man watching his only friend reveal herself to be a complete stranger. The next few months were a slow, grinding descent. My work, which had once been a source of pride, became a chore. The Project Phoenix I had been so eager to shine on now felt like a punishment. Annika was professional, but there was a guardedness in her interactions with me that never went away. She was efficient, but she was a closed door. Our team meetings were exercises in sterile politeness, all agenda points and action items, with none of the easy collaboration we'd had when Javier was there. I was a functioning part of the machine, but I was no longer part of the team. The isolation was the worst part. I'd see Javier in the hallways sometimes. The first few times, I tried to catch his eye to offer a pathetic, pleading look. He never acknowledged me. He wouldn't glare or scowl. He would simply look through me as if I were a pane of glass. His new team on the Atlas account seemed to adore him. I'd see them laughing together in the cafeteria, their camaraderie easy and genuine. It was a constant, painful reminder of the community I had lost, the one I had single-handedly destroyed. Then came the quarterly performance reviews. I went into Doug's office feeling a sliver of hope. My numbers were good. My client feedback was positive. On paper, I was a model employee. Maybe, just maybe, this would be a chance to reset. Doug didn't even look at my metrics. He had a single sheet of paper in front of him, the official review form. He cleared his throat. "Sky," he began, "your individual performance continues to meet expectations. Your client management is solid." I felt a wave of relief. "Thanks, Doug. I've been working hard." He held up a hand, stopping me. "However," he said, and the word hung in the air like an axe, "there's a note here from senior management, from Kaylin Vance specifically." My blood ran cold. "There are concerns about your soft skills, your judgment, your ability to foster a positive and collaborative team environment." He didn't need to say more. I knew exactly what he was talking about. It was the corporate speak translation of, "You're the person who publicly humiliated a colleague for personal gain." As a result, Doug continued, finally looking at me with an expression of weary resignation, "your name has been removed from the list for promotion this cycle. We'll revisit this in 6 months, pending a significant improvement in your demonstrated team player capabilities." I sat there, stunned into silence. I had done it. I had gotten the CEO's attention. She remembered me, all right. I wasn't Sky the spreadsheet wizard or Sky the reliable customer manager. I was Sky, the office pariah with poor judgment. The final, perfect twist of the knife came 2 weeks later. An all-hands company meeting was called. Kaylin Vance stood at the podium, looking every bit the powerful, decisive leader I had been so desperate to impress. She was announcing a major new company-wide initiative, a high-stakes project that would define the next fiscal year. Leading this critical initiative will require not only exceptional business acumen, but also an innate understanding of our company's most important asset. "Our people," Kaylin announced, her voice resonating through the auditorium. "It requires a leader who knows how to build trust and elevate their team. That's why I'm thrilled to announce that the project will be led by Javier Ortiz." A wave of genuine, enthusiastic applause filled the room. I watched, frozen in my seat, as Javier walked onto the stage. He looked confident, composed. He shook Kaylin's hand, and she smiled at him, a real, warm smile, the kind I had never seen from her. He stood at the podium and began to speak, outlining his vision with a quiet authority that captivated everyone. He never once glanced in my direction. It was like I didn't exist. I had tried to use his story to climb a ladder, and in the end, I had only succeeded in building the stage for his coronation. I had played for the approval of one person, and in doing so, I had lost the respect of everyone, including myself. Now, most nights, I'm the last one to leave the office. Not because I'm a hard worker, but because I can't stand the thought of going home to my empty apartment where the silence is just as loud. I sit here, under the sterile hum of the fluorescent lights, staring at a blank document on my screen. It's titled Apology to Javier. I've been writing it for 3 months. The document is a graveyard of false starts and deleted paragraphs. I've tried every angle. The groveling apology. The intellectual apology where I analyze my own toxic behavior. The emotional apology where I talk about how much I miss our friendship. They all feel hollow, like lies. How can I write an apology for an action whose consequences I am still too stupid and self-absorbed to fully comprehend? I see the truth now, in jagged, painful flashes. I didn't just tell an inappropriate joke. I took a man's trust, the most fragile and valuable thing he could offer, and I used it as a stepping stone. And for what? For a fleeting moment of attention from a woman who probably forgot my name the second she left the room that night. No, that's not right. She didn't forget my name. She remembered it. She attached it to a file labeled not a team player. Poor judgment. I wanted to be seen. That was the pathetic, desperate truth of it all. I was so terrified of being invisible, of being just another cog in the corporate machine, that I was willing to burn down the only real thing I had in that place. And the irony, the beautiful, cruel irony, is that I got exactly what I wanted. Kaylin Vance sees me, Doug sees me, Annika sees me. They all see me clear as day. They see me for exactly what I am, a fool and a backstabber. I close the laptop without saving the draft. What's the point? The words don't matter anymore. I look across the darkened office to the empty desk that used to be Javier's. Sometimes I still expect to see him there, to hear him laugh at one of my dumb jokes. The absence of him is a constant, dull ache. I destroyed everything. I destroyed it all for a punchline that no one even laughed at. How did I get here? How on earth did I manage to ruin everything so completely?